All right, I am not wearing like workout attire because of this. It's just hot here. But I feel like it is very fitting to be wearing this for a review of a series that may be the most spicy and ridiculous thing I have read in all of 2022 up until this point. So, a couple of things about this review. First of all, I will be reviewing all 4 books in the series that I'm about to talk about, and here's what I'm going to do. The first one, I'm not going to spoil anything. That will be spoiler free. If you want to continue the series on, I suggest you stop the review there, because this book and this series is at once like an incredible reading experience, but also the last book made me really, really upset, and I want to talk about it. So I will be spoiling part of the ending, but I will warn you before I do that. So you have been warned. Pay attention to when I say spoilers are coming. So the series in question is the Deliciously Dark Fairy Tale series by K.F. Breene. K.F. Breene has a number of other romance series out there, but this is my first introduction to this author. The books are A Ruin of Roses, A Throne of Ruin, A Kingdom of Ruin, and A Queen of Ruin. A Queen of Ruin just came out very recently, and so that's like new-ish. So when I saw this series pop up on my Kindle Unlimited subscription, I saw that it was and it's right there, a spicy, dark Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I was like, these sound like things that I would enjoy. And if it is something you would enjoy, I will say this now and I will say this later. This is not a series that you read for the plot. Some books, more than other in particular, and we'll talk about this, are definitely more sex than plot. It is explicit and it is dark. And again, we'll talk about where that goes later on. But I just want to put that out there, that I am not reviewing this series for its literary quality necessarily. I have definitely read worse written books. I mean, I will say that. Kindle Unlimited is a scary place sometimes. But I was reading some reviews of this that was like, yeah, there's no plot. And I was like, that's not the reason you read this. And I have no problem saying that I read it as a guilty pleasure, and you could too. But it is what it is. So this book is the story of Finley and Nifane. And Finley is a poor peasant girl living in a community that is being struck by a plague, essentially. And in her community, Finley has discovered that there's this plant that grows on the edges of her village, kind of in the demon wood, called Everloss, where if she can harvest it, she can make a potion that can slow the spread of this disease. So there is a beast in that forest that is supposed to protect the townspeople from the demons. So it's a very dangerous place to go. They're not supposed to go in there, but Finley does it anyway to protect her family and the people that she knows and cares for. Another wrinkle about this is that this is also, with the plague came a curse, and that curse keeps people in the village from shifting. They are all supposed to be, wolf, bird, whatever, shifters in a kingdom that was once ruled by dragon shifters. As far as they know, all of those people are gone because the old mad dragon king made a deal with the devil king, and the devil king, screwed that guy. He's dead now, and the demon king put a curse on everybody. There are many layers to this. It's fine. So Finley has been getting Everloss out of this field since she was about 14. And a number of times she has encountered or heard the beast in the wood. However, for the most part, it has protected her until, it doesn't. And this is because the beast has discovered that Finley has done what no one else has been able to do so far, and use the Everlost to create this potion that helps with the plague. So she is taken back to the castle by the beast, who turns into be this dark broody prince named Nifane. And that's when this book starts to get weird. So right now, right, I mean, you're very familiar with how this is going. Nifane is the lost prince. He's one of the last dragon shifters. However, he has been able to force his shift, but in forcing his shift, he mangled his dragon's body. So now he's like ugly and scarred when he's shifted. There's a curse, this is beat for beat, right? So then she ends up at the castle, and it turns out that the castle has been overrun by minions of the Demon King, and in particular, the Demon King has sent a lot of succubi to keep the people in the castle from having the energy or power to rise up, which means that every single night, the demons have everybody in the castle having an orgy. And it just becomes clear that some people really enjoy how kinky things have gotten, and some people, they call it having shame sex every night, and they do it. They're very just inured to all the kinky stuff that's happening, but they're just like, I would love not to have to have sex in an orgy every night. And Finley is not a virgin, but she is just this is a lot of things. In particular, there is Nifane's butler. A lot of the people who once ran the castle have gone, and so this guy used to be a stable boy, and he was just elevated to butler when everybody else was gone. His name is Hannon, and he is by far one of the best in the character of really ridiculous and funny secondary characters, and he's there for all 4 books, and he's just lovely, and he just makes you laugh every single time he's on the page. And he's the one that he shows Finley around the castle wearing essentially a furry suit, and he's like, yeah, this is just what happens here. And Finley's like, aight. And it's just really silly. And I think it's a really good marker for what you are going to be signing yourself up for. So outside of all of that, I would say that this book follows many of the beats that you would expect from something that is based around Beauty and the Beast. And, it's that Finley comes and, she thinks that Nifane is evil and comes to realize that he's not so much. And of course, there's shifters, and I feel outside of the funny sex orgy, demon sex all the time kink thing, this is a shifter book, and so I feel anytime you see a dark fantasy, spicy romance, and again that was all in the blurb, that you can basically kind of expect what's going to happen there. It's going to be a lot of talk of primal or animal urges, and in this book, Nifane is very much I really want you, but I can't because, then my animal will be let loose and I will never be able to let you go. I will claim you as mine, blah, 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 blah. They are clearly very into each other, and there is definitely some baiting, because Nifane's I can't do this, and Finley's I really wish you would, and then they kind of, bicker, and they're really sassy with each other, and, it's that kind of back and forth. And so that, obviously this book has a high spice level, but I think that's fairly what you would expect, kink-wise from a shifter book. And so I was okay, that's just what's happening. This book is very much, them starting to fall, but knowing that it's a bad idea. Finley is very smart, and what I really appreciated about her character is that it's not because she has some special powers or anything. It's that you know, she spent so long working with the Everlost and working with other herbs and potions and reading that she is able to be just kind of like a self-taught genius. And so she's able to do a couple of things. She obviously can make the potion with the Everlost, but she can also make something that helps the people in the castle push back against the succubi magic so that they're not all having sex every night in like these wild crazy orgies. And they're like, some of them don't take it and some of them are like, oh my god, thank you, I need to sleep. Anyway, and in this one, the beat kind of ends with Naifan realizing that it's not safe for her at the castle because the Demon King will begin to have interest in her, and so he sends her back to the village. And so I think you can kind of, in the full Beauty and the Beast story, like when she is, you know, he releases her from the castle and she goes back, and that's where the first book ends. So A Throne of Ruin is a couple of things. And first of all, I think A Throne of Ruin, if you go through all 4 books and you were to say this one is more sex implied, A Throne of Ruin stands at the top. Finley begins the book not at the castle, but eventually there is the introduction of this story's really creepy, sketchy Gaston-esque character, and he kind of makes like a deal with a demon to help kidnap Finley and force her to marry him. It's very creepy. And so eventually she ends up back at the castle because she's like, listen, it's not safe for me here, it's not safe for me there. And so together we can work on protecting people and breaking the curse. At this time, Finley does not really know what it will take to break the curse. There is like a gag magic on everybody, so every time they try to tell her stuff about it, their throat physically seizes up, and if they try too hard, it can actually kill them. So she's just kind of going along, making her potions, falling more in love with Naifan, and this is the book where they decide to go for it. Demon King be darned. And yeah, this book is like, there is just spicy. It's just spicy. So Finley has an animal stuck inside her. So because of the curse, she's not able to shift and doesn't really even know what that animal is. But there's kind of like 4 people in this relationship. And so Finley's animal and Naifan's dragon really want to get it on. They are obsessed with getting it on. Even when Naifan and Finley are like, this is probably not a really smart idea. There's literally just sex on the brain at all times. And yeah, that's essentially what this book is. So we are going to get a little more spoily now, talking about the last 2 books, because these books are at once the best thing and the worst thing about this series. And I do feel like I have to kind of talk about some major plot points just to kind of tell you what I'm thinking about here. So if this series is something that you are thinking about reading and you don't want the ending to be kind of spoiled for you, I would not continue to listen from this point. Seriously. We're gonna talk about major plot developments. Still here? Okay, so at the end of the second book, A Throne of Ruin, the Demon King comes, and he, as Naifan and Finley were worried, he is very interested in Finley. He wants to know how she's able to kind of counteract his curse, and so he makes a deal with her that he will lift the suppression magic, so the part of the curse that says people can't shift, not the disease part, if Finley goes with him back to the Demon Kingdom. And so Naifan claims her as his own through the act of sex and biting her, because there's like a vague vampire thing going on there. And so says she can't be sexually assaulted because his scent will repel other males, whatever. And at the end of that book, Finley goes off to the Demon King's Demon Realm castle. For most of A Kingdom of Ruin, they are apart. And that does not mean the sexy time is over, because they have like a mental bond that allows them to have mind sex. it's fine. But minus that part, what is really interesting about this book is that, like I said earlier, Finley is smart because she has had time to learn to be that way. And in this book, there is a significant amount of time devoted to Finley being captured by the Demon King, but not just waiting around for Nifane to save her, which is incredible. She is tortured. Nifane does what he can by feeding pleasure down the bond, so she doesn't, she's not in pain, she's just having an orgasm while she's being tortured. But there's also other dragons that are still captured by the Demon King, which some of them Nifane knew and thought was dead. And they are not really trusting of her. They've been there for longer, and there's also wolves and fairies. And it is Finley's job to take all of these people, make an alliance, escape, and kind of start the center of an army that she plans to bring back to Nifane so that they can kill the Demon King and free their land forever. And I kept being really worried that this book was going to say, oh, Nifane has to come save her. And that's never what happens. Actually, what happens is that, she's been taken away. Nifane just gets ready to give up the ghost. He can't, he sent her off to die. He can feel her pain. He basically collapses, and Hannon is sitting there like, all right, dude, you gotta get up. There's a plan, and you are not helping. You're just moping, and I'm very frightened of you, but hello. And so I really appreciated that, and I thought this book was it was good. It was dark, but it was also hilarious because the Demon King in his kingdom, apparently the succubi that he has sent to places like Nifane's castle are bottom of the rung citizens. And there are these parties that he throws that are really vanilla. And when Hannon shows up with a party of people from the castle to help Finley escape, the way that they help her escape is by introducing the demons that are in the Demon King's court to the world of public orgies and kink, and totally turning the castle on its head and letting the succubi in and distract everybody. And it was really, really silly, like I said, but it was also just hilarious. They're trying to find out which of their captors has what kink so they can distract them with it's really silly and spicy and just giggle-inducing, but it works, of course, around this whole torture, dark, death, escape plotline. So one of the cool things is that she doesn't immediately go back to Nifane when they do escape the Demon Palace. She goes to a different dragon village, and also there helps to recruit more and more people to bring back to Nifane. She, by this point, has learned what she can shift into and is learning to shift, and dealing with the fact that she is Nifane's true mate, which I don't think any of us never thought would happen when this series started, but is a big shock to her, as one does. That was really cool. Again, it was more about her having to learn. There is no part of Finley really that is just I can magically do all these things. She has to earn what she's acquiring, whether it's knowledge, whether it's her ability to withstand pain, her allies, her skills, all of it. And I really, really liked that. So at the end of the book, she does eventually make it back to Nifane, and they mate for real and realize that they're true mates. They break the curse, yada, yada, yada. This, of course, antagonizes the Demon King, and he is going to attack them, which is the whole point of the last book. But by the end of the book 3, they're back together, they're married. So this makes Finley a princess. She's not good at that. And another thing she has to learn in book 4, again, great. And now for book 4, the sex level, is going to go way back up because now they're mated, and in the beginning parts of a mating bond, the sex drive is almost insatiable. So you get that to look forward to for book 4, plus obviously the end of the whole story. A Queen of Ruin is where so many things that I liked about Finley's character get disappeared a little bit. And it doesn't happen immediately. There are really great parts of this book, really funny parts of this book. Like I said, Nifane needs more allies to help defeat the Demon King once and for all. And so they go to different courts and try to make political alliances. And like I said, Finley's not great at that. So this is another skill she has to acquire while staying true to her sassy self. I keep on mentioning Hannon, but the truth is that as these books continue, they get more and more secondary characters, which are really fantastic and I really enjoy. And so by book 4, there's a whole motley crew, which is really lovely, really badass, really silly, really funny, and very kinky. Nifane and Finley, of course, they can't stop banging each other. That's a given. But this is where you get like one more kink in this book, which is definitely not mine. And it is also something that shows up in some fantasy romances and drives me insane every single time it happens. Plenty of books that have shifters in them will at some point, especially after the pair is mated, have a breeding kink. And this can manifest just in them like talking about having a family, or it can be like during sex scenes, either like someone is saying breed me, or there is like an active like, you know, I'm gonna fill you with my seed and you're gonna have my babies and all that kind of stuff. And so that is introduced after the mating bond is solidified, which, okay. There was a brief pregnancy scare earlier in the books, which totally sent Nifane into a tizzy because he believed that it was not a safe time to bring a child into the world. Even though the Demon King is not dead and they're flying all around trying to get allies and about to fight him, they suddenly decide that now is a great time to get pregnant, and Finley does. So there is a segment of fantasy romances where, whether or not there's a breeding kink, the female main character will reach a point where she is so powerful in one way or another that she ends up getting pregnant, and that causes her to have to pull back for some reason. And so in this book, you know, Finley has been training this entire time to join Nifane in this fight. She has been the one to acquire most of these allies, and then she gets pregnant. And of course, because Nifane is her mate, and it's all very primal, like it is the biggest thing in his world to protect her and their child, and so she is asked to pull back somewhat from the final fight. And while it's not excessive, the amount that she's asked to pull back, it was just incredibly frustrating. I just felt like it was a betrayal, particularly of the third book, where Finley was learning how to do so much independently, to have her get pregnant then. And also, like, with that scare having happened, why would you say now is a good time to get pregnant? Like, it's, for me, I feel like that really brought down the enjoyment of this series for me. I was really not a fan. If that's not something that really is a problem for you, because for me it's just like one of those tropes that is like an immediate turnoff, then I bet you will enjoy this entire series. But I have a hard time getting past it, and it does sound like from the end of this book that there will be more, another series on some characters that are connected that will continue, or if there isn't, I will be confused because it seems really, really strongly set up. But I really had a hard time with that, and especially because Finley was being set up to be so strong and independent and learning all of this stuff. I just really didn't like that. Again, these aren't poorly written books, but they are not books that you will be reading If you are looking for intense literary quality, some of them definitely are more sex than plot, and they are incredibly spicy, incredibly kinky, and incredibly silly. There are some pages that just feel like they are discussing kinks and sex for like pages and pages and pages, and you're like, what is happening? So they are for a certain reader. I am still glad that I read them because I definitely got quite a lot of laughter out of them, and up until the fourth book I really felt like I enjoyed how Finley's character was progressing till it hit a little speed bump, you know. So if you are looking for a roller coaster that is a romance, that is dark and incredibly spicy and has magic and werewolves and fairies and shifters and dragons and demons and a whole lot of other stuff, this may be ridiculous enough for you to give a go. So if you made it all the way through, thanks. If you've already read this series, let me know if that ending bothered you or not. And otherwise, I will see you next time with either incredibly kinky romance or nonfiction. This is not an account that has an incredibly amount of continuity because I'm weird. I'm just weird. I read a lot, okay? Anyway, have a great day, guys. Bye.